Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
I feel much better now. I really do.
Hello again, friends. It is Friday evening in Raleigh, and it's the last weekend in September. It is time for another fun week of working on the pod. I've done some work earlier this week. I got an early start on it. Did some work Wednesday and Thursday night, and now here it is Friday. So what I'm going to do is cut in those bits that I did Wednesday and Thursday after this snappy intro, and then we'll pick it up from there. Greetings, it is Wednesday evening, and I am starting preliminary work on the pod for this weekend. And I'm trying something different. I hope you'll indulge me. I've got Paul's decals for the inside, well, for all of the ship, and they are superior to Scott's decals in accuracy and in quality and in everything else that matters. So those are the ones I've decided to use. And while I am sure Paul has backed these in white, because I do see some white decals there, I want to give an extra measure of protection and an extra measure of color popping, because I only want to put these things down once. So while I had my cutter out, I went to the vinyl cutter and I cut out these shapes to go behind the decals. Now this also allowed me to figure out my spacing on the explosive bolts, and to get the backing behind all of those, which also gives me a nice glossy surface to put the decal on, because decals like to go on glossy surfaces. So I'm laying those down first, and then I'll put the decals over top of them. And I know that they will fit because I scanned the decals and sized these boxes to fit them. So I hope it will come out okay. And I've also stuck this guy down. I used to use a little bit of micro crystal clear around the edges and popped it into place, and I'm letting it dry. I should have made the box in the back a little bigger. I don't know. I cut the box out, or cut the detail in the wall out, and put the box in to match the size of the detail in the wall. But the decal, or this overlay, is actually a little bit bigger. And if I had had these at the beginning when I was doing that cutting, I would have made that box bigger. So as it is, the lighting is not as uniform as I would like it to be. Plus, it's an interesting conundrum. You see those white lines around the panels? Those don't really light up. Those are those are panel lines that are on the control surface, but they're not supposed to be lit up. Well, the unfortunate side effect of having this whole thing printed on overlay film is that the light will come through those as well. So I tried blocking the back of those as best as I could with white vinyl. I made the mistake last night of trying some black paint, and unfortunately, as you can see here, what happened is it actually painted out the line. It just made the whole thing black and you couldn't see it, which is no good. So I wanted to put something white behind it that would also light blocking. So I tried using vinyl. And the success is nothing to brag about, so I'm just going to forego that. I was going to try to do that on the front panels as well, but I'm going to forego that because those outlines are too close to the actual buttons that need to be lit. So we're just going to lay this in as is. Well, as you can see, the consoles are finally going in, or the overlays are finally going in over the consoles. And if I can keep my grubby fingers from smearing the glue, which I am using microcrystal clear to put them down, we'll be better off. Now this gloss, that's just an unfortunate side effect of the glare, but everything else kind of looks good. That smear there, it's just a finish thing. I need to clean it up, but this is not as easy as it looks. And this next one goes in here. So what I am doing is painting the back side here with the crystal clear and popping it in place. Here's my last shot for a Wednesday evening. All of the panels in and lit up. And Dave is in place. And I've not put the decals over those bits in the back, but I did get the overlays in. I like it. Well, welcome. It is Thursday night, almost the gateway to the weekend. And I'm going to do some decaling tonight. just a little bit, not too much, not going to get carried away. I'm going to do all the decals on this door, which are on Paul's sheet, and I'm also going to do the decaling on Dave, which is not as much as you would think, but it's the arm patches, and there's one logo that goes there, and there's another one that goes on the backpack, which I found out tonight, was watching the Blu-ray of 2001 again for checking some references, and no, he was not wearing his backpack in that scene. I'm used to seeing this view with it back, and I thought it was just back below his neck piece, but no, it is not there at all when he rushes in. He does wear the chest piece, but not the back piece, so I'm not going to take that off, but it's just going to go with the fact that he was also not wearing gloves, which he's got here, so it's getting less and less accurate every day. But let's get busy on some of this stuff. I thought I'd stop in the middle of decaling to document this. They seem to be going on pretty well. I gotta say, I love Paul's decals. They look so good, and the detail on them. I mean, if I could focus in on that, you could read that text. And he's got a wicked sense of humor too, which I also love. There is, let me see if I can focus in on it now. Get out of the way and then focus on these. Is it going to focus? Yeah, almost. And then zoom in very slowly. The last instruction, if you cannot read it, is kiss your butt goodbye. These are the instructions for blowing the hatch. And it says, the first one is use of explosive bolts. I'm sorry, my hand is shaking. Let me put that down. Maybe that'll make it easier. Here we go. Use of explosive bolts is authorized only in the event that your HAL 9000 computer malfunctions and shuts you out of the XD1. Please push spherical buttons, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and kiss your butt goodbye. That's the basic gist of it. But these are going on quite nicely, and even though, yes, I know Paul backed them in white like he was a good boy, but I still like the fact that I put the white decal, or the white vinyl down, and put the decals over it, because it gives me that little added bit of dimension, plus it's just ever so much brighter than the other red that way. Looking very good. Okay, it looks like the rest of the decals go on the outsides of the ship and or the pod in various places, so I will put those away until I am a lot further done, or until I'm done painting the outside. But here are the decals on the inside. I stuck one right there for no good reason, so sue me. But I covered up all the bolts and put the wording in and the ones there. Now what you're seeing is how the Solvaset is discoloring the red on the door. It's making that gloss and a little bit darker, and I'm not liking that. I'm going to see how that dries in tomorrow and see if it's still as obnoxious as this, and if it is, well then it looks like I'm going to have to spray the entire inside with a satin finish anyway, so that might even it all back up. I'll have to cover this up before I spray the satin, because it would gunk up the glossiness of that overlay. So we'll set this aside for the rest of the night and see how the Solvaset is working that decal down into the ridges on his sleeve, trying to get those to go down. And I've gone back and I've grayed up Dave's hair a little bit and his eyebrows, and tried to get him a little bit more closer to his movie counterpart. And there's the decal on the top of the chest piece, and there's one on the tail end of the backpack. So that's it for a Thursday night. I don't normally do this much work on Thursday, so I'm trying to get ahead of the game for the weekend. Okay, we're back to Friday evening, and what I've done is, or Friday slightly afternoon, what I've done is I've put a coat of clear satin over the inside of that, carefully trying to keep it off of that, but trying to get rid of the watermarks and the staining that was left, or the discoloration that was left by the Solvaset, and the best way to do that is to discolor everything equally. So that's going to dry for the rest of the evening. I'll set that aside. And I'm going to probably do one more coat of the satin inside there to get the reds to match up. And then finally, after all this time, I'm going to peel this off so you can see what that window looks like. Fun stuff. And here is Dave on a Friday evening, and you can see that the decal has kind of started to sink in amongst the ribs on his costume, spacesuit. And I grayed up his hair a little bit more and dulled down his eyes a little bit. And I got to repaint a little bit on that collar, and he'll be done and ready to take his seat. And there is the lovely console with the even lovelier overlays in it. It's catching some weird reflections. That's what you're seeing, especially on the left-hand side there on the bottom by the joystick. That's just the waviness and the gloss. The next big step, and here's Dave. Dave is ready to go into place. The next big step is to take the pedestal, consoles, and the floor and forever and ever make them one with the back section. And then I can I've got that step in there, that bottom step, I've got it kind of hanging in place. I can seal it and glue it down and forever join it. But we're down to the big stuff this weekend. Tomorrow I want to put the back in and put lots of 1 minute epoxy on the underside of the floor there, get it really sealed in there. Let that set up tonight. And then tomorrow morning, I think the first thing we're going to do is join these two halves together. It's going to be fun. This is the big exciting stuff this weekend. Lots of showy. So let's get on with it. I'm trying to determine something important that's going to help or hinder future construction. That is, can I put these two halves together with the console in and with Dave in, but not, and then have all that done and then attach the arms. If you recall, the arms have a little stop on them. You can just see inside there. They've got a little stop on it that screws with a plate that screws onto them that keeps them from pulling out too far. Now the question is, can I wait till after the two sides are joined together, but I don't have the earmuffs on yet, to attach those arms? Because it sure would be a lot easier to do all of the pushing together and the working this top joint, cleaning all that up, if I don't have to worry about the delicate arms out in front. And at this point, it looks like I can hold off on that. Slide that in there, and you see where that back part comes. Now, if I can take a plate and the tiny screwdriver and see if I can do this without the no, I can't do this one-handed. But if I can put that little plate on there and work a tiny screwdriver in there, then I can hold off on attaching those arms, which is a big benefit. Yay. Okay, first of the major construction for the weekend is done. I've got the floor and consoles packed in. I've got them glued in. I got that little step taken care of, and I've packed some epoxy sculpt underneath this back seam just to give it an extra bit of stability and oomph. And I'm going to let that sit up overnight. Now what I need to do on this side is to spray the satin finish to get it at the same gloss level as the front. Or as the back, sorry. Righto, now I've spent the last few minutes putting the last touches on Dave. I have to make myself happy with what he looks like because he's getting ready to become inaccessible for large portions of him, it is. So I just went around and touched the colors a little bit more and get him ready to go in while this is drying. I'm going to, like I said, not touch this anymore except maybe to slip Dave in position. Not going to glue Dave down yet. Maybe do that first thing in the morning. Probably put just a little bit of epoxy on his rumpus or on the seat and then sit him down into it. Here's something you haven't been able to see for a while. A clear window. Yes, I took the masking off the outside and the inside just to double check, make sure something screwy hadn't happened before I seal these two halves together, but looking pretty good. I did have to touch up the inside frame there a little bit where I had some overspray creeped under the mask, but looking very good. And then I'll just put a little mask in place there before I paint the outside. But that inside front wall should be done. I am toying ever so little with the idea of cutting out those two little round panels that go on either side just to make some sort of indication of them. I think I've got a couple that I can print from Paul's decals, maybe print some on that high quality photo paper just to see how they would look. It's not really necessary, but by the time the console comes up to about here, it might be nice to have something going on up there. Let's see what I can find. Good morning, it's Saturday. Time for a day of big doings. It's crummy, raining outside. It's supposed to be raining most of the weekend, so what better weather than to be working on models. Big doings today. Big doings. Got the overnight. This has attached itself and solidified, so that's good. I am going to put one last coat of gloss or satin on Dave, except for his head, so to get the spacesuit to be appropriately semi-shiny, and plus also to seal in those decals, which look good, the patches and all. But I want to put one more shot of a sealer over all of that. Dave's looking good. I paled him out a little bit and grayed his hair up some, and I think painting in that collar really was the thing to do. Okay, I'm test fitting the front and backs together. Got some big old massive tape on there holding it up just to see what my next steps are, and I thought I'd get some pictures of this because this will be the last time you see it without Dave inside. Very nice. Now big old Dave is going to cover up a lot of that view, which is why I am leaving this side off, or removable. Not off, but I'm going to put magnets on it to make it removable. There's the view most people are familiar with, is looking in through the window. The innuendo, as you might want to say. It is the innuendo view. Okay, the cardinal rule amongst modelers, and if you are considering yourself a modeler of any stripe, then you already know this, is test fit before you commit. Test fit before you commit. It's right up there with measure twice and cut once. It is the most important thing you can do. And that'll sometimes test fitting will obviously it's meant to show up any problems you might have once you get the sticky stuff out, because once you start gluing, many times there's no way back. And from test fitting this thing multiple times, I have learned that the best way to attach or to attack the problem of attaching the back to the front is going to be to use 5-minute epoxy, because I need some working time. I can't use straight super glue because it will set too quickly, and I need to be able to put the glue in, put the sides together, and moosh it around a bit before I can jockey it into its final position, and you just can't do that with CA. But the way I think is going to be the best way to attach this is to get the bottom, this joint here and along the side, get that settled down and clamped and pushed together as much as possible so that there's minimal seaming that needs to be done. Now, I'll still need to fill that in with some stuff, probably some epoxy sculpt or something to fill in that gap. But attach that first, and because these parts have a bit of a twist to them, once that's set up, and I mean for a few hours, then I can go back and kind of hold this top joint together and do it with maybe 1 minute epoxy or drops of CA to tack it in place, and then fill in with a quicker, thicker setting epoxy. But to try to get the top and the bottom all glued at one time is madness and folly, and life's too short for more madness and folly. So once Dave is in and glued to his little bottom is glued to that seat, I am going to attach the bottom of the back of the pod. Remember that test fitting I was talking about? Well, it's revealed another issue that I'd like to change while I can. I need to remove more of this so that when I push this onto the front, it doesn't, right now it's kind of pushing the whole console up, which pushes this into the window frame more than I would like it to be. Some of it's going to show in the inside window frame, that's unavoidable, but I want to minimize it. So by getting rid of some of this stuff at the bottom, I can ease some of that pressure, and it's never going to show anyway. Okay, I'm entitling this chapter, Never Be Afraid to Take Your Model Apart While You're Working on It. I was not enjoying the fit I got up against the front window that I was getting when I mashed everything together. It was off center and I didn't like it. So I took the console off of the floor. And what I'm going to do is glue, like I said at the very beginning, working from the front back. I'm going to glue the console in on the fit where I want it, and then make the floor shim to fit it. Since that view is much more important than the floor, and now that I've got the kit together and have been test fitting things, I can see what joints are going to show and what joints really aren't going to show. So that's the lesson I've learned today. And all that work getting Dave in place and getting him on his seat was kind of for naught, because he is glued to a seat, but the seat popped up while I was doing everything, so I can, he's on his pad, I just need to re-glue that cushion down. Okay, believe it or not, the console is glued into the front wall, and that joint under the window is exactly where I want it to be. Symmetry may look a little bit off, and I'm going to blame that on the underlying console frame, because I don't think it was exactly square and symmetric. So that is the important view right there, to make sure that the curvature underneath the window continues all the way in once you look in through that window to see Dave. So that joint having taken care of that joint, what I'm going to do now is probably drip some more epoxy back in under here behind this and the wall to kind of fillet that out. Not fillet, that's deboning. But to kind of pack that area and make it more substantial. There's a bit of a gaposis going on there that I can solidify by putting in some either clear epoxy or epoxy sculpt. I think it's going to be clear epoxy, because it'll seep down into the gap and fill it much better than I can with putty. And then it's going to be a matter of trimming these guys off so that I can slide the floor back underneath it. Alrighty then, it's taken a fair amount of surgery and fitting and testing and squeezing and breaking and fixing and carving, but I've got, now you can't really see because I've got to do both hands, but I've got this joint really tight now to where I could squeeze it together, and epoxy it and let it go. Not the top version, not the top, just the bottom, because once I do the bottom, then I will square up the top and squeeze it together. I can only concentrate on one section at a time, and the bottom is the first one. Now that I know that that's hunky-dory, I can reinstall Dave Meister. Okay, ladies and germs, one of the many moments of momentousness is upon us. I'm going to go ahead and do the gluing of this seam right here, and then I'm going to work over to the other side, and then I'm going to do the top. Actually, I'm going to do the bottom, let it sit for a few hours, and then do the top. I'm going to tack this with CA because it's right pretty much in place where it needs to go, and then I'm going to try to backfill it with 1 minute epoxy. Oh boy, this is the moment I've been waiting for, or working towards for quite a while. Okay, cats and kittens, very exciting times now. This bottom joint has been glued, and what I'm going to do now is to butter it in, fill in some gaps with 1 minute epoxy or 5 minute epoxy. I'm going to mix some up and just ever so gently put it down into these joints and let it kind of sink in and seal up. And then I'm going to go to lunch. And when I come back, I'm going to wrestle the top joint in place. It's going quickly now, friends and neighbors. Okay, here you can see the magnitude of the twist that has yet to happen. The bottom is drying in, and I am not going to put any great strains on it until it's had a few hours to really set up. But you can see what needs to happen here. This needs to come in. The front needs to go over a bit. The back needs to come back a bit, and this needs to come down. It's a complete twist. You can see it there. What needs to happen, and it does move there. I can make it fit. I just need to let that set while so that it's strengthened. And a funny thing happened to the joystick when I put Dave in. The final configuration, the joystick is a little bit wonky. It's kind of at a twist. That's where it ended up landing when Dave got his meaty paw on it. I can't change the position of his arms, so luckily that joystick has a tall, skinny, maybe there you can see it. Sorry, has a tall, you can see a reflection on my shirt, and that's all you're seeing. A tall shaft on it there, so it allows that bend to happen. A little bit of preview of the red light on the roof. Now that's going to be closed off with earmuff, so it's even going to be even a little bit more contained than that, but that's how he's looking. My table is degenerated into a mess again. I don't know how this happens. I wish I had somebody that would come behind me and clean as I went. Here you could see the cock-eyedness of it. Try to make that sound less dirty than it did. What needs to be squozen together. And what I'm going to do is do this side because it's very close. All I need to do is push these together and trawl some CA in there to spot weld it, as it were. And then I will put a seam of the 1 minute epoxy in to settle the top of that, and then I will work the other side into shape. Among the annals of the unpretty, this seam is king. I've just tacked it in with some CA, and what I want to do is turn this baby upside down and run a bead of 1 minute epoxy in there from the inside that will fill in that gap and really reinforce it. And then as that gets strong, I will be able to come out here and sand and putty and otherwise close that open wound. What I'm liking about this is this model is getting kind of heavy. It's getting kind of beefy and substantial, which I always think is a sign of a good model. If it's a paper light thing, then it doesn't really feel like it's got the gravitas that it needs. Okay, hopefully you can see that bead of 1-minute epoxy sitting in there that hopefully will be seeping down into that crack and permanently binding it. Yes, it looks a bit strange on its kipping on its back or on its head with wires sticking out the bottom, but this is as far as this goes, at least for this afternoon. It is about, I guess, 2 o'clock-ish on a Saturday afternoon, and I'm going to let this seep in for at least 2 or 3 hours before I even think about touching it. And then it's going to be a matter of pointing these guys up and covering them up and getting the earmuff on at least the starboard side. That would be the right-handed side for those of us who don't know our port from our starboard, and getting that one on. That one's going to be the permanently affixed one, and then given how well that goes or not, I will start working on placing the magnets for this side's version. Greetings, it is still Saturday late afternoon, and while the pod is curing in the other room, I'm going to get back to addressing the brown on the hopper that I really wanted to be more of a rusty orange. So I picked up another couple of colors. Well, I had some orange here, but I picked up some metallic brown. To me, I'm going to mix them together and try to come up with something that's a little bit more visually pleasing than this dirt brown. Here you can see the two colors side by side. This is much more what I was looking for. Not quite a coppery. I didn't want to get into copper, but more of an orange with just a hint of metallic. So now I'm going to spread that to the rest of the formerly brown parts. Now that's much more like it. You can see where I start throwing in some shades and some tones on the brown as well, or this what is actually now a metallic rust, which is what I was kind of hoping for at the beginning. That's not as pretty as it's going to be when we're done. But all of these, now we're starting to get some shading in here, up in here. Okay, what you see here are some very lightweight plastic sheet styrene. Basically all they are is dust covers. I've got them taped in place so that I can start sanding on this without the dust getting inside and everywhere. So we'll see how well that works. These arms are not attached, or not permanently attached, so I'm going to pull those out, and I'm going to cover up the window because it has a habit of collecting static electricity and dust. Okay, with everything taped off, did a little bit of sanding with the sanding block, and you can see where the high spots are and the gap osises. And I'm going to put a little bit of the old Bondo spot putty in there and see how it goes. Probably going to lay some in and leave it overnight and come back to it tomorrow. And here's the first sanding of that seam. The spot putty has dried. I have sanded it, and I'm going to put a coat of the white filler primer, the gray filler primer on it, and start buffing that joint out. Look at that. That's pretty clean. I'm just throwing shadows over you so you can see. Now obviously that's not a covering coat, but I'm trying to see if the contours or if there's any gaps in there. And it's looking pretty good. That's it for this evening. Here's a last bit of construction on the hopper for Saturday evening. I've got, these are not glued in yet, but they're holding the spacing right. But I'm putting together the landing gear frame, or the carrier frame. I've done some painting on it, quite a bit of painting on it, but I realized I was going to end up mucking that up doing the rest of the construction. So I went ahead and finished building it so that I can paint the undercarriage and then start applying the bits and bobs to it that go on it, like these little tanks and some other stuff. So oh, and here is one of the thrusters with the with the engine in it. That kind of, it's meant to be made to be posable. So a little bit of dry brushing inside there to bring out some of those turbine details. I guess those aren't turbines. This isn't a jet, but to bring out some of those details, and then a scoring of flat black around the edge and on the outside to show some scorching. And that engine will be done, and I can start detailing the wells here so that all of them look like they belong together. And let's see, I painted the frame on this, the blue parts of the frame. I'll mask those off and repaint the black bits now. But that's the double width frame. You remember me fixing that piece? Well, that pieces are in now, so good on that. And we'll pick this up tomorrow. Good morning, it's Sunday, and here we have a tale of two pods. Just wanted to show you the size comparison. I still can't quite get over the scale of that big hopper. But the pod has dried overnight. This is the little detail piece that is provided in the kit, and it is there on the movie. If you watch the scenes of the pod, they do have a little raised dimple there. I guess dimples are inset, so this is an inverted dimple. Anyway, it's a detail part that was, I guess, part of the door mechanism. Scott provided it as a cover for that ugly hinge thing that I'm not using, but I needed to go back and go ahead and put that detail back in. And if I put it in now, subsequent coats of the white paint over top of it will really blend it in rather than trying to add it later. So look how smooth that roof is. I don't know how well I lived to deserve that to come out so easily and so cleanly, but I'll take it. So I'm going to stick this down with a little bit of glue and then start blending in the white sandable primer coats on this first, and then I can uncover some of this other stuff. And here we have the hopper. I'm really digging that rusty brown orange base color. That was a lot closer to what I was wanting. And I got the blue color on the landing gear last night, and the blue color on the window frame. And there you can really, I'm really liking this contrast between this metallic gray and the blues. Now I'm going to put some streaking and some weathering in there, or not, maybe weathering isn't the right term, but some staining in there with some other colors to really knock down that the starkness, the factory freshness of it. And I want you to see the interior. There's not a lot of light in there, but you can see kind of how the interior relates to the exterior, if you will. And there is the one of those big jet engine openings, the front door, and the landing gear. I don't know if it's all right to talk about this, but I talked to Paul, or was chatting with Paul Polbo, Paragraphics himself, on Friday night, and he's got some things in the works for this kit. I don't know all the details of it, but he's thinking, as I understand it, of a front porch type of arrangement here and ladder that's a little more beefy than the stuff that's provided in the kit. And he's got all kinds of good ideas cooking for the panels, overlays and etch panels for the cabin. I don't know if I can wait that long, but because I've got some differing ideas and maybe it may not gel with what he's doing, but I'm not the only folk working on this kit, if that's any comfort to you. Okay, it's Sunday afternoon and time to get to some work. I just got back from my weekly service, and I gotta say I like the new guy that we've gotten in the last month or so. We reach, brother. Anyway, it's earmuff time. Earmuffs, as they said in, I think it was Old School. It was with Vince Vaughn when he was trying to discuss adult things around his very young toddler. He would tell people, he would tell them earmuffs, and the kids would cover their ears so as to not hear the salty language. But that's what we're dealing with today, earmuffs. I'm going to take this temporary paint blocker off, and we are going to put this piece in. Now you see, I had to cut a new hole in it because yesterday as I was test fitting it, I found out that the console in the center is very much on a straight line with the outside plane of the pod. However, since this has to sit in a little bit, it was sticking out too much, and I had to cut something that resembled the side of the console. And you're not going to see that once the pod's in place, because the top of the console covers that. So, but the other thing we need to do is, at least temporarily, well, no, not temporarily, we have to put in one of the arms, because I'm going to be covering up that spot and not be able to access it anymore. So I have to install one of the arms and then devise some sort of baggie or tape or something to cover it from subsequent damage while I'm painting. So here we go. And here you can see the crevasse, the gaping hole, the what is left when I take that piece of blocking off, and we are going to be attaching that in there just like so. But first, as I said, I need to reattach the arm. And the arm is installed. It goes in, it slides in and out, and the ball is sitting here very roughly on this roll of tape, so I don't want to jostle it too much, but it goes. There's the I don't know if I can get in there to see it, but there is the stopper. Yes, that head of that screw, that's the stopper. So that keeps it from coming out too much, but there is the sliding mechanism. Lovely. Now let's put the earmuff on. And so now it's a question of lining up the earmuff so that the 3 o'clock is where it should be, the 9 o'clock it should be, and the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock. So it's square. And then gluing her down. Okay, this is one of those joints where, or one of these bits of constructions where you really feel like it's should be more difficult than it actually is. I mean, it's such a momentous thing to put this chunk on here that you really think that it's more important or more difficult than it actually is. What I've done is I've just drawn a pencil line down through where these joints are, taking that to be the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position. And I've taken this piece, and I've basically, because you can't really rely on these guys being symmetrical or even or positioned exact clock positions. So I'm going off of the 4 holes, the thrusters, I guess, going off of those as being in the proper location, and the kind of that raised accent, which is not exactly square either. It's not exactly even on the front side or on the back side. So taking this to be your actual mark and carrying that up, you can see that's where that mark lines up at the top. And basically all I'm doing is lining those bad boys up top and bottom to try to get a true orientation. And really, as parts go, this isn't complicated. All I gotta do is run a little bead of CA around that and pop it down in place and then tape it down. There's some gaposis going on here that I will fill in with white tulip, oddly enough, because it'll fill that crack real nice. And then I'm going to have to see what I can touch up on the inside side. I have to reach over Dave, and well, you'll see that once the glue dries and I can pick it up again. But there'll be some prettying up on the inside I need to do. But let me do this monumental. It's going to be, frankly, anticlimactic once it's down, but down it needs to go. Okay, trying to show what's going on in there with had to shine a flashlight in it. The red's taking care of itself pretty much, and there's a goodly amount of dust going on. But what I'm going to do is probably take a bit in that joint there and fill it in with some clear epoxy and paint over that to kind of smooth that joint back down, or try to hide it as much as possible. I don't know whether I would be able to pack any epoxy sculpt. That might be a better bet, just to pack some epoxy sculpt back in that joint to kind of fill in from the top of the earmuff wall up to the ceiling joint. But everything else is looking pretty good outside of the dust, which gets everywhere, the sanding dust. It's particularly noticeable on that back wall, so I'm going to have to get a can of compressed air or just use the airbrush air to suck that out. Pardon the upside down view, but here you can see I've just taken some epoxy sculpt, rolled it into a long snake, kind of crammed it in that joint. And water is your best friend when working with epoxy sculpt. Using water on a wet brush as opposed to water on a dry brush really sculpted that seam, and then once this dries I will hit it with the red paint and hopefully it will mostly disappear. There's a little bit more at the exact joint there. Oops, get the camera where I can see it. There's a little bit more at the exact joint that I need to fill in, but 99% there. Here's the view inside the side wall that I'm going to try to put magnets on to make it viewable for your viewing enjoyment. This is the red lights on. Let's see what that looks like from the front window. Oh yeah, that's the ticket. That's the stuff. Nice. One arm on. Look at that. We have a qualified success with the magnets, and I say qualified, and here's the qualification. I cannot work out that seam as tightly with this side as I can with the other side, because it's always going to need to come on and off. So yes, I'm going to put some white paint in there and it's going to minimize that gap, but that gap can't be filled in with any sort of I wish I had some of Steve Neal's Evercoat, because then I could work at filling some of that in. And I think I might try to do some sculpting to fill in the biggest part of that gap. But in order to make this removable, and there are your magnets, uno, dos, tres, found out I really didn't need one on the bottom. To make that workable, I cannot ever get that seam to be as tight as good as gold. See, it snaps into place and it comes off and it holds it in place, which is the important thing. But now I need to fill that in with a bit of stuff. And then we'll be ready for the first coat of white sandable primer. I could put this other arm in, which I could really do at any time, because now that this comes off, I can take that in and out and do that screwing and gluing from the inside. So I really don't have to attach that, which is good. It makes it easier to work with. And here's a trick I learned, or tip I learned from watching Steve Neal. Take some Vaseline. And I'm going to smear it on the inside here where this is going to come in contact to the epoxy sculpt. And if I did it correctly, the epoxy sculpt should not stick to that, but I'm going to goosh it out and get it seated, and I can trim it off or work it from there. Let's see if it works as well as it did on TV. One last job for the afternoon, actually one last job for the weekend on this pod, and that is I am going to take some white tulip slick, a secret weapon. It should be in everybody's arsenal, whether it's white or black. Black makes an excellent light block, but white is, since I don't need to block any light, white is a better choice here because the rest of the pod's white anyway. But I'm going to run a bead of it down through here to kind of seal over this seam. Here's a little bit of lit consoles for your Sunday afternoon viewing pleasure. I am going to let this epoxy sculpt that I have done to make this gasket, let that dry overnight. So we're at the end of our weekend's work. But and I've got a mask on the front window to get that ready for painting. Let me take that off. Maybe I can get some light from the outside world to shine in there. That's how it's gonna. There we go. You can see Dave in there with the consoles. And of course dust is abounding everywhere. There's no real way around that at this point. I will clean
There, I'm shining a light inside the front window so you can see some of the detail in there. It's really bringing out the dust, but like I said, that's a fighting proposition until I get ready to close it up for good. Well, I mean, so I'm done sanding and poking and making more dust, so there we go. Looking very good. Now let me try it with the red lights on. I can't hook them both at the same time yet, so let me hook up the red lights. There we go. That's the red lights in the cockpit. Very nice. And here's one last look at the one-armed, one-eyed flying purple people eater. One-eared, one-handed. And I've got the other one sitting here. And now we come to that time again where we are at the end of our report for the week. Got a tremendous amount of work done. That's good when nothing else you can do. The yard will have to wait. The outside weather is frightful, so you stay inside and you work on models and you have happy weeks. Got a lot done on this pod. Got it closed up. Got the earmuff on. I am very happy with the way the top joint is acting. Really, all this left is the cosmetic stuff on the outside, which is, you know, most model building is cosmetics. So that will be where we pick that up next week, and then I start working on the base. Waiting on a delivery of some LEDs that I'm going to use in the base to kind of light it up. So no great rush on that. I'm going to start figuring out the switches and the wiring to wire up the base. I'm going to put 3 switches on. One for the red light, one for the front headlights, and one for the console lights. So that fun stuff will happen probably next week. Throughout the week as it comes, I might try to start put some base coats of the white sandable primer on the whole deal and maybe clean up some of those joints. And on the hopper, big progress on that. I found a color I was happy with as far as that metallic brownish orange color that complements the blue. And now I'm going to start putting the interior together on that and painting it up. It's going to be done in whites and grays like your typical Starship interiors, but then I'm going to make it look lived in. So that's going to be the fun point of that building. So until next week when we'll pick all this up again, have a good week. Go out, enjoy yourself, and meet me back here next week for more fun with pods. Have a good week.